everyone, welcome back. My name is Anna, aka Brookwillow, and today I have another studio chat for you filled with knitting, spinning, and some sewing as well. I hope you all have had a lovely month since we last sat down and chatted. I certainly have been very busy, and I will talk more about that in the life stuff at the end of the episode. But for now, we're going to talk about all of the fiber crafts, which is why I'm sure you're here. I have finished a couple of items, cast on some new items, and I have some future projects that I am planning as well, which I'll talk about. So let's just jump right into the knitting portion. I have one finished knitting object, which you likely have seen if you follow me over on Instagram because I posted it a few weeks ago, and that is the Scout Shawl by Florence Spurling Studio. Here it is, all finished. Here's the little points at the end. I showed this off as a work in progress the last time we sat down to talk, and I was pretty far along on it, maybe just over halfway, I think. And I really focused on getting this project done because I was partnering with Blue Sky Fiber, and I'm a Blue Sky maker, and my deadline was to have this project done by the end of January, and I came really close to finishing it on time. It just went a couple days past, but that wasn't a huge deal. So yeah, I really focused on finishing it, and I'm glad I did because I have been wearing this a ton. It's still been somewhat chilly here in western Wisconsin. However, it's been unseasonably warm, but still cool enough to wear a scarf, and I've been wearing this with everything. I especially have a faux Sherpa, like camel colored coat that this just pairs super nicely with. I think the blues and the greens just stand out against that coat super well, and yeah, I just really like wearing it. The yarn that I use to make this is the baby alpaca from Blue Sky Fiber, and I'll list all of the colors and everything down below. And I absolutely loved working with that particular yarn. I know oftentimes regular alpaca can be known to be very itchy, but baby alpaca is like baby soft. There's no itchiness to this. I can wear it right next to skin. And last night I was even out walking the dogs at night, and I was able to wrap it around my face, and my face didn't get itchy at all. So very lovely yarn to work with. I even mentioned in the last studio chat that it felt like working with cashmere, and now it feels like wearing cashmere, which I think is fun, and I love it. The pattern was super fun. It was a great way to kind of get my color work desire out of the way. I had really been wanting to knit color work, and this just did it for me. I enjoyed it because you work all of these different panels, obviously, and once I got bored with working one particular panel, it was time to move on to the next one. So it kept my interest throughout the entire knit. The only thing I don't love about this pattern, which you can probably notice as it's hanging here, is the fact that there's a 4-stitch garter edge right here that just isn't strong enough to hold its structure. So it does curl in a bit since it's knit in stockinette. And I did have a viewer reach out to me on here saying that she knitted as well and had that same issue. And a lot of people were saying the way to resolve that is to maybe add an I-cord on it. I just didn't feel like doing that, at least yet. It's something I won't rule out because I do have this blue yarn left over. So I think if you're thinking about making this, consider making a thicker garter edge. That's probably what I would do. I would maybe even double it to be 8 stitches instead of 4 stitches. and I think that would create a nice, more structured edge. Otherwise, I don't know, if you have any ideas on what I could have done differently, I'd love to hear it in case I knit something like this again in the future. But yeah, that's the only issue I really had with it. It's not too terrible, especially because when I wear it on my coat, I just kind of drape it around my shoulders and I unfold the edge here and it seems to stay pretty okay. But as it hangs like this, it does curl in quite a bit. But again, I love this. I really love the color story that I chose. It feels very spring and bright, which is exactly the mood I've been in lately. I'm totally ready for spring, so this has been a very fun piece to wear. I have 3 active whips that I've been working on, and I'll show you the first 2 that we saw in the last studio chat and just give a little progress update, starting with the Versal sweater. So here I am with it. I think the last time we talked, I hadn't split for sleeves yet, or maybe I just had, I can't quite remember, but I am almost done with the body here. I just have like an inch more to knit on the ribbing and then bind off on the body and then do the sleeves and it's done. So this, again, it's the Versal sweater by Ailbíona McLochlainn. I chose this pattern because I wanted to knit myself just a plain stockinette stitch garment, no texture, no color work, nothing. I've never knit just a plain garment for myself. So I thought it was time. And I wanted something in a very grassy green color because, again, I'm in a spring mood and this color just reminds me of springtime. And I liked this, or I like this pattern a lot because there's a lot of different options on how you can alter the pattern, and she gives you directions on how to do all of it, which is really nice. So you can get all different types of sweaters just from one pattern. And I talked about the neck last time where you can do like crew neck, mock neck, or a full turtleneck, which is what I chose to do. And then as I was knitting the body, she gives 3 different options on how to knit the body based on what fit you want. So there's the straight fit, and then there's directions to make it tapered fit, so where the ribbing would be pretty tight in the waistline, or which I chose to do is the A-line fit, so it comes out just a little bit from the armholes to create a looser, boxier style fit. It doesn't look like it because these needles are just a little short, but once, you know, they're bound off, it'll be a slightly more A-frame fit garment. So I just, again, think it's really cool that she gives you the options to do those different things. I know you can make those modifications on just about any pattern there is out there, but it's just, I like that she kind of holds your hand along the way if anyone needs that extra help with it. So I am happy with how this is turning out. The yarn I'm using for this sweater is Jamieson's, and it's the Aran weight Shetland Heather in the colorway Pippin. There were a few different greens available that I could have chosen from, but again, I just really like the grassy green of this particular one. And one thing I really like about this, which I always admire in yarn because you can't really get this commercially, is kind of the heathered look in the yarn. If you look at this up close, it really has so much dimension in the colors. It's not just green. There's oranges and even little red bits and darker green bits. And it just really brings the whole sweater to life, which I really do love. This sweater has been taking a little bit longer than I was expecting it to knit, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that I have caught the spinning bug. I've been spinning away, and we will definitely talk about that in the next section. But yeah, I really do want to get this one done quickly. In 2 weekends from now, I'm going up north with my friends, and I would love to be able to wear this sweater up there. And so that'll be my goal, is to have this done in the next 2 weeks, which I really do think I can achieve that. Because again, it's 2 sleeves left, Aran weight yarn, if I focus on this particular knit, I'm pretty sure I can get it done in 2 weeks. My next WIP is another one that you have seen here on the channel, and that is L'Ombre des Oliviers by Océane LM. And that is this beautiful colorwork winter headband piece that I am making here. And again, this is a free pattern online, and it's this beautiful colorwork, double-sided winter headband. It'll have kind of a knot look in the front, and then the colorwork just wraps itself all the way around my head. And the reason why I wanted to make this was because I have so many handmade beanies, but I've recently cut my hair super short and I don't love the way they all look on my head. Some of them I do still really like, but I just wanted to try a different style of winter head accessory, and I just thought this one would be super nice because sometimes I don't always want to just have a whole hat. And this one too just feels very springy and just puts me in the mood for flowers and bright skies and all of that. So I'm enjoying this a lot. It's a pretty tedious pattern. There's no like easy repeats through it. You pretty much have to stare at the chart the entire time. But that doesn't bother me too much, especially when I have my iPad set up and I just have the screen on all the time. It hasn't been an issue. So I'm enjoying making this a lot, and I've made quite a bit of progress on it. I'm probably just about halfway done with the color work around my head. And a couple things that I forgot to mention in the last episode about this. I've had a few questions about this. So again, it's a free pattern, but it's all in French. And some people ask me like, oh, do you speak French, or how are you able to understand the pattern? And since it's a free pattern, someone actually translated the whole pattern into English in the comments on the Ravelry page, which is super helpful. And that's what I've been going off of. And then I just click on the actual pattern to see the chart version of it. So that's been working out super well. However, in the past, I have made other projects that were in a different language, and I just plopped all of the directions into Google Translate, and that was able to translate it super well for me. And then I've made a like Word document with the translated words or directions on it. So if you come into that issue in the future, that is something that has worked out well for me. The other thing I forgot to mention is I did make a slight modification with the color work, and that is because in the chart it gives these flowers a more sketched look, if that makes sense. And there's a bit of parts in the leaves where there's holes in it, and it shows this like periwinkle background color. And I didn't want the color work to get lost, especially since it's more of a low contrast colors that I used here. So I made the leaves be completely solid with the white color work. There's a couple spots where I kind of forgot that I was doing that, especially after I picked it up after a while, but I don't think they're too obvious where it distracts me from the whole pattern. So yeah, that is one modification that I did make on it. I do also want to get this one done pretty quick because like I said, it's been warming up quite a bit here, and I want to be able to wear this before it gets too warm. So this will be like my second priority project that I'm working on. I have a brand new WIP that I'm working on, and it's going to be more of a long-term project. I have quite a bit of scraps in my stash behind me here that I just want to like completely get rid of. They're all scraps from projects that I just had a bunch of leftover yarn from. And I did start making a Scrappy blanket back in the fall, which to be honest, I haven't really touched since, but I still love it and I still plan to continue making it. But that one has a white background with big chunks of colors making like a cross pattern kind of. And that's all great, but it doesn't really go through a lot of the Scrappy stash that I have. And I really curated those colors so they all work well together, leaving behind a bunch of other random colors. So Excuse me, I have dog hair all over my face. Long story short, I cast on another Scrappy blanket project, and this one is a bit more scrappy than the other one. Here is the beginning of the blanket, and this is a free pattern from Purl Soho called The Incredible Blanket. I was scrolling through Purl Soho, as one does, just admiring the yarn, and I came across this pattern and I fell in love with it immediately. I have mentioned in the past that I don't love stripy, scrappy blankets, which is funny because that's essentially what this is. But I do really like the little bit of, not texture, but they're not solid stripes, and it almost looks like a crochet pattern. I'm not really sure exactly what stitch pattern this is. It kind of looks like a linen stitch to me, but I know it's not quite a linen stitch. But yeah, I think it's really cool. I haven't gotten very far with it yet, as you can see, but it's a really fun pattern to knit. And like all of us may know, knitting stripes can be very potato chippy, as they say, because it's just fun to see what the next color is that you knit with it and how it looks with the blanket. And the way that they did these directions was kind of fun. So what you do is you take all of your yarn and you separate the colors into warm colors and to cool colors. You put them in 2 separate bags, and you basically alternate between warm and cool as you're adding the stitches on here, and you close your eyes and pull out whatever you pull out. So there's a little bit of an element of surprise to which color you will be knitting next. So that's exactly what I did. And I am holding these 2 categories of colors in these beautiful project bags that were sent to me by the Knitting Swan. So Taupe from the Knitting Swan reached out to me through email and asked me if I'd be interested if she would send me some bags as a gift with no strings attached for free. But I do think they are so beautiful, I couldn't not show them here on the channel, and I will link down below her website. But yes, these, I love them so much. It's this white canvas fabric with these printed roses all over. And this particular one is a quilted bag with the 2 drawstrings on the top that cinch like that. I think this is my favorite style of knitting bag, is when they just cinch. I just like the way it looks, and I like the shape of it as well. But yeah, I was so very impressed with how thick it is. And the inside has interior pockets as well. So I thought it was a nice way to store each color. So I have the cool colors in this one and the warm colors in the other bag that I'll show you as well. So this one is just a smaller version of the bigger one. It still does the cinch at the top, would be good for like a sock project too or something. And it just doesn't have the quilting on it, but it is using the same fabric. I don't have a ton more to say about this particular project, only that I'm enjoying it and I know it's going to be on the needles for a very long time. My next whip is very much in the beginning stages. I haven't even officially cast on yet, but I did swatch for it. This is the second project that Blue Sky Fibers sent yarn support for, and I'm just very excited. And it's going to be another sweater, and that is the Jadwiga, again by Ailbíona McLochlainn. I have just been loving all of her patterns, so I'm in kind of an Ailbíona McLochlainn phase right now, but for good reason. She just makes cool patterns. But here is the swatch that I have so far, and I did hit gauge, so I'm ready to go on it. I do kind of want to finish the green Versal sweater I'm making by her first before I jump into this one, but again, I'm just really excited for how this one is going to turn out. And the yarn that I'm using for this project is Blue Skies Extra, and it also is a baby alpaca, 55% baby alpaca, but then 45% merino, so it's more of a blend. And I'm doing it in these 2 beautiful colors here. This dark blue color is called Ocean Deep, and then this really light gray is called Lake Ice. So both very water themed here. And I chose these colors because these are colors that I don't really ever work with. I don't really ever knit with navy blue. However, I love the color navy blue. And I definitely don't ever knit anything gray. I just never really felt like gray worked with my complexion so much. And I just haven't really been drawn to the color gray. But this particular gray has this like icy blue undertone on it, which I think is just so beautiful. And I also think it pairs really nicely with this dark blue. And the other reason why I like these colors together, especially for this time of year, is I always kind of fall into like a nautical vibe in the springtime, usually around May. I live a couple blocks from a river, and like there's a harbor where a bunch of sailboats will post up through all summer. So once the sailboats come out, I am just in like full nautical mode, and I want to be able to walk down to those sailboats and wear this sweater and just watch the birds on the sailboats and just hang out. So it gives me kind of a nautical feel without having like obvious stripes. There is actual stripes in the colorwork pattern that I didn't include in this swatch here, so it'll give it like that subtle nautical feel. So yeah, I'm very excited to cast this on. I do want to do this pretty quickly as well, especially because I promised that I would have this project done by end of March, which I do want to have it done by regardless, so I can still have time to wear it before it's fully summer outside. So I mentioned that I've been doing a ton of spinning lately in the beginning of this video, and that is the truth. And that's kind of why I haven't gotten as much knitting done as I probably would want, but I just can't stop spinning. And it's not even really been on my wheels so much. I did spin up another skein for the Traveler pullover. I showed off a skein, I think, in my last studio chat, so I won't show it again. I did another skein on that, but I have been obsessed with the spindle spinning again. And I think it's because Andrea Mowry's been doing the 100 days of spindle spinning, and I've been seeing a ton of people's posts on Instagram about it, and it's hard to just not want to join in on the fun. I haven't so much been doing the 100 days because I jumped in maybe at day 50 with it, but I have been spinning every single day on the hand spindle. And I started out with doing the suspended spindle here, also known as a drop spindle, where you just spin like this and draft it down and then take it off and wind it around on the spindle. And this is how I first started spinning. So if you're ever curious about spinning, I would recommend maybe a suspended spindle, just because it's a relatively low cost way to get into the whole thing to see if you even like it. A lot of people don't like suspended spindling. I don't really know why. I like it a lot, so I am still continuing to do it. And I have this beautiful spindle here that I got from the Woolery last summer. And I finally finished one skein that I've been working on with my 2 drop spindles that I have. And I don't know if you remember, but I have started doing the Shave 'em to Save 'em passport here, where it lists off all of the critical breeds in order of most critical to least critical, and it encourages you to buy fiber from different farms that are, you know, raising these types of breeds, and it helps support the farmers to want to continue working with these breeds that are just not as in demand as the more popular ones there are out there. So I started with the Gulf Coast Native, and I have fiber here that I got from a farm. This is the fiber, and I spun it up on 2 of my spindles, and I finally had enough to ply it all together. And here it is plied together. And this has just been lovely fiber to work with. It kind of surprises me that it's a critical breed because I absolutely enjoyed working with this. And I think a lot of it has to do with how it was prepared. The person who prepared this fiber just did the most beautiful job carding up this fiber into the beautiful bat that it is, and it's like a cloud to work with, and it's pretty short staple length, so it's super easy to spin up on a hand spindle, and I've just been enjoying it. I have 2.5 more bats of these that I'm going to spin up, and I think it'll give me at least another skein of this, maybe 2 more skeins. I'm not entirely sure. And I have no idea what I'm going to use this for yet, but it's just nice to have it in the stash. I may even use it in a weaving project, but we'll see how much I end up with. So I've been doing a lot of that, but I also, this is why the spinning really has taken over. I decided that I wanted to try my hand at supported spindling. So I finally bought a supported spindle and it has taken over my life. So here is this supported spindle that I have. I got it from just like a little shop on Etsy. Supported spindles are very hard to come by. I think there's a really high demand for them and not a ton of people who are actually making these spindles. And it was really hard to come by anything in the beginning, and now I've since done a ton of research and I know where to find all the spindles. But this one was available on Etsy, and it's a Turkish style spindle which has the disc at the bottom here. It looks similar to the suspended spindle, basically just flipped upside down, and then you have the point at the end with the little bowl that you spin on. So I got these two as a set. There's a couple things I don't love about this particular spindle. The first thing being that it's just a wooden point at the end. A lot of supported spindles have a metal tip, and the reason why I'm not so keen on it is I am almost done spinning up just a third of the braid that I'm working on, and the tip of the wood is already bent. You're not going to really be able to see it, but it's already worn in and flattened down kind of at an angle on one side. So don't love that. And then traditionally the supported spindles don't have the little eye hook at the top. If anything, it just gets in the way of what I'm trying to spin. And I even talked to a spindle maker on Instagram, and he agreed that that's really weird that there's a hook at the top of it. So those are just a couple things that I don't love about this particular spindle. However, I'm happy with it enough because it was available to buy relatively quickly on Etsy, and it was just the first one that I'm using to learn on. I have since ordered 4 more supported spindles, and they'll be trickling in within the next month or 2. And so in the meantime, I'm just going to finish spinning up what I'm spinning on this and work on my suspended until the other ones come in, which I'm really excited about, and I will share them as they come in on future episodes. But I do want to talk about the fiber that I'm spinning up on here because it's a new fiber subscription that I subscribe to, and it is from Lavender Lune Yarn, who is based in Minnesota, so she's relatively local to me. She does a ton of yarn dyeing, but she just started a monthly fiber subscription inspired off of Chimney Smoke Art, who's also an artist in Minnesota as well. So I love that it's all pretty local here. So she dyed up this beautiful braid here that I'll show you. Here are the lovely colors. I am in love with all of these colors, and I think they are so pretty together. So we have the bright reds and the camel colors, and then it ends in this really soft kind of periwinkle blue. And this is inspired from this particular painting from Chimney Smoke. The moment I saw this inspiration for her subscription, I knew I had to subscribe to it because I too am just a huge fan of this type of artwork. I think it's very folky and whimsical, and yeah, it really inspires me as well. So each month there'll be a different little painting that is what she's using to base the dyeing off of for the fiber, and I also get a little print of each one as well. So I think that's also just an extra fun touch. There's a couple different places in my house that I'm really excited to frame these and to hang them up. This one being more of a winter Christmas inspired one that I'll hang up more in the winter time, but I assume there'll be more summertime ones as well, which will be nice for the rest of the year. I do have another sewing finish object, which excites me a lot because I've been very inspired to sew a bunch of garments as well. I have recently purchased a bunch of new patterns that I'm having printed out at pdfplotting.com, and they're already shipped out, so I probably will see those this week. So more to come with sewing, but I am going to show you my finished object, and that is the Zero Waste Gather Dress by Brigitta Helmerson. Now, I talked a lot about making this. This is made out of flannel that I found at a thrift store this summer. I got 8 yards of it, already made a pair of pants, made this full length dress, and I do have enough to make a little jacket as well. But yeah, I absolutely love this. I've worn it twice this week already, and it's just a very cozy winter dress to wear. It feels like wearing a nightgown. I wore it to work, and I wore some long underwear underneath it because it was kind of a chilly day, and it was just the coziest outfit ever. I did make this particular one a little differently than the first one I made. The first one that I made was more of a long sleeve that cinched at the wrist. And that actually was my plan for this one, but I forgot that the long sleeve version was a pattern hack that was at the end of the pattern, and I didn't read far enough. So I already cut out the fabric, and I figured may as well just wear this, and if it's an extra cold day, I can layer a long sleeve shirt under it, no problem. And yeah, I'm fine with that. I did buy some different buttons for this, but for some reason I only ordered 6 of those particular buttons when actually I need 9 to go all the way down. I wasn't really thinking about it, but I'm really happy with how these buttons turned out. They are a shell style button, and what I really like about them is the little line work that is running through them, and they have a hint of blue, which I think stands out nicely against this warmer beigey tan plaid. So it gives the buttons a little bit of a moment as well. And then you may have noticed this label inside. I ordered some custom labels on Etsy that just say Brookwillow on it, and I think it just gives a fun little designer feel to all of the clothes I wear. It's pretty obvious to tell which is the front and the back of this particular garment, but I just like the way it looks hanging on the hanger with Brookwillow on the inside. I do plan on sewing these labels into some of my sweaters, especially the ones that are really hard to tell what's the front and the back, so I think that'll be really nice to have to just like quickly throw on, and maybe a couple of Mitch's pullovers that he can never tell if he's wearing it the right way or the wrong way either. So yeah, I got these just printed on Etsy for relatively inexpensive, and yeah, it came like a pack of 20. I like this dress a lot. There are a little bit of fit issues that I have more at the top. I think my shoulders are a bit too broad for what is allowed here, and it just gets really tight in this area, and sometimes the fabric twists a little bit, so I'm constantly having to adjust it to lay flat. And I'm not sure why that is, because I made this dress in the same exact size before. The only thing I can maybe think of is that this is made out of a thick flannel, and the other one I made was made out of a thinner linen fabric. So I think maybe this is just a bit stiffer and it doesn't relax as easily as the linen does. It's not so much of an issue where I would never wear this at all, but it is something that I do notice as I'm wearing it. But other than that, I do think the rest of the piece turned out great. And another exciting thing about it is, you may have saw in my last mending episode that I got a serger machine, and so I was able to serge all of the interior seams of this, and they're all clean and nice, and that just adds another touch of professionalism to the garment, which I do love a lot. So yeah, that's my finished object, and again, I have quite a few plans to sew going forward, especially for this springtime. I am really excited to get going on those, and hopefully I have more to show you in the next studio chat. So like I mentioned in the beginning, I've been pretty busy lately. I ended up going on a work trip to Nashville for almost a full week a couple weeks ago, and it was so much fun. It was my first time in Nashville. We stayed pretty much downtown. We did the whole Broadway scene where it has all of the multi-story bars with all of the live music. That was definitely my favorite part of the whole trip, was just seeing the live music. It was super cool. We had excellent weather. It was in the 60s, so it was a nice little break from the 30s and 40s we have here in Wisconsin. And yeah, I had a really good time. So I work for my family's business, and I went with my dad and my sister and some other people that we know, and it was very enjoyable. I wanted to visit some local yarn shops, but they weren't really downtown area, and we didn't really venture much further out of downtown, so I wasn't able to see any, but oh well, I have enough yarn anyways to get by for a while. And then before I went on that trip, the day before, my friend and I decided to join a birding club, and we went on our first birding hike with the members, and it was such a wonderful time, and it is a whole world that I am going to deep dive into it. I already know it. I already bought a pair of binoculars for it. I had to borrow some. Yeah, I don't know. I feel so far with birding, it's just such a great way to be mindful. I go on a lot of walks because I have dogs, so Mitch and I take turns walking them every other day, and now I started taking the binoculars with the dogs, and I think we go twice as long as we normally would because we're stopping and we're watching birds. And I've been using the eBirder app, so I've been tracking the birds that I'm finding, and it's been a lot of fun. So I'm really excited about that. It's an activity that I can do year round. A lot of the outdoor activities I do are very seasonal dependent. So I mountain bike in the summer and I cross country ski in the winter. Sadly, this year I haven't been able to go a single day cross country. We have not gotten like any snow, but with birding, there's always birds year round. So that is something that I'm very excited, and another reason to just get outside. I live in an area where I'm located right in the middle of like 2 state parks, and there's a bunch of regional parks around me as well, so I have access to a lot of nice walking trails to get out and do that. So I'm very excited for that. I haven't been watching as many shows lately, and I think it's because the weather's starting to get nicer and I'm starting to go outside a bit more, but I have been watching another show on PBS called All Creatures Great and Small. It's a show that I've been wanting to watch for a while now, and my dear friend Casey from Young Folk Knits, I saw that she was watching it in one of her videos, and I asked if she would recommend it, and she said definitely. So I started it, and I'm almost done with the first season. I have half an episode left of the first season to go, and that's just been such a nice, feel-good show. So I do recommend it if you are wanting to watch a different show. I also discovered a new to me band. They definitely aren't new. I think they've been around since the 70s, and they're called Penguin Cafe Orchestra, which I found via Pandora at work, and I am just obsessed with this band. This is really nice instrumental music to have on in the background on like a bright sunny day. It's just a very feel good vibe. It gives me the sense of like everything's going to be okay, is the feeling that this music gives me. Not that things are particularly going wrong in my life, but if they were, this would definitely be the music that I choose to listen to brighten things up. And I just enjoy listening to it, even with things going well. So if you want some beautiful background music and you haven't heard of Penguin Cafe Orchestra before, I do recommend listening to them. It's been really nice. I think that's pretty much everything going on in my life right now. Like I mentioned, I have a girls' trip coming up in a few weeks. I am actually doing a buckthorn removal party next weekend, which I'm looking forward to, just getting it out into nature again, involved in the community to do something good. And yeah, I'm just happy that it feels like spring is here. It's not officially here. It's still technically winter, but I'm feeling the spring. And I hope you are too. I hope you've been having really nice weather where you are and you're getting excited about spring as well. I think that's where I'm gonna leave it here. Again, if you like what you see or hear here, please give it a thumbs up. That really helps my channel out a lot. And if you're new here, please consider subscribing and you won't miss out on any future content. And until next time, I will talk to you later.